okay and pray for him. The children in Kenya are just so beautiful, and you can never ever really be truly depressed or disappointed when you see their faces. I mean, these were my neighbors. They were always playing in the yard, and I was lucky enough to get a chance to do work at the orphan program as well. I don't know if you guys can see me in here. And we would teach them mathematics. I actually got to teach an 8th grade class while I was there about HIV, and it was just an amazing experience. And getting to do home visits with Praxides, who is a medical worker that we have, who herself is HIV positive, and brought herself from the brink of death through faith in God and seeking help from others when she was so prideful that she decided one day just to give her life to God, and God told her to get treatment. And she has turned her life around, and now she spends countless days going around and giving those who have lost hope, going to their homes and telling them that you do not have to die from this disease. And this woman, the woman right here that you see on the right, she has 5 children. She lives in a shack. Thankfully, none of her children are HIV positive, but her husband only comes home at night. He beats her. I mean, it was just such a terrible situation, but there was still this hope. And so many times I spent nights thinking, how can people have hope when everything around them is going wrong? But there's so many good people there that no one ever completely loses hope. And it's just such an important thing. This is their home, and this is really the extent of it. And five people live in this dirt-covered floor, a tin roof filled with holes. She said, their words, I asked them, what happens when it rains? And Praxides says, they suffer. That was her response. It was unbelievable. And despite all of this chaos and suffering, you just have this, it's surrounded by this beautiful landscape. These are the railroad tracks. The train only comes through once a day. But this is when we were walking through Luanda town doing our HIV home visits. I just was astounded by how beautiful everything was in the scenery. And at the end, Carlos and I got to go on safari, which was amazing as well. So if you guys want to read more about it, I set up a website when I was over there. It was the one thing that kept me from going completely insane. So if you have an afternoon and you want to read and see some pictures and videos, you can just Google Medical Macgyver, or if you can remember, Medical Macgyver at blogspot.com. Check it out. It's got some really amazing stuff on there and some comedy. So I just have a really short video to show you guys before.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. My name is Desi Carosa, and I'm one of the residents. I do internal medicine and pediatrics with UT. First I'd like to say that this opportunity has really changed me. Changed me as a provider of healthcare and changed me as a person. And I have you to thank for that. I have a few photos that I'd like to talk about. I have several more, but I think a few stories will give you an idea of the kind of things that have really impacted me both on a professional level and on a spiritual level. I had the opportunity to go, this photo is very hard for me to look at. I just returned a week ago from my trip, and I have training in pediatrics, which has made it even more difficult for me. Because when I would go and I would see the children in the wards, it was heartbreaking to know that if they were here in Memphis, that things could be different. And so that is particularly difficult for me. But what it did do on a really important level is really honed my skills, because I realized that there are diagnosticians in the world who have written wonderful books about medicine and about physical exam and about history and history taking. And when you don't have when you don't have all of this wonderful technology available to you, it makes you really have to realize and face what you know, what you don't know, and know your limitations. And also think much more deeply about what impacts this patient. And that is something I will always take with me, because I used neurons while I was there that I haven't used yet, and that I hadn't used up to that point. And I can tell you now that I didn't think that I would really just be opened up as much as I did. And I can tell you that this experience has made me a much better provider. And Dr. Hardison, who is amazing, he is brilliant, as well as, his sort of grumpiness is really only a facade, because I have seen him just be so wonderful with patients. And you can see that when he takes care of patients, that it's just really, really amazing. And so on a professional level, this trip was important for me. On a spiritual level, having been there over Thanksgiving, I can tell you this was the most amazing Thanksgiving I have ever spent. And the first 3 weeks of my trip were getting adjusted to as many of the obstacles that Dan talked about: not having consistent water, not having consistent electricity, not having the ability to just say, I need to know what this patient's potassium level is. You don't check potassium levels there, like we do here. We don't check things like we do here. And I got to a point where I had been really frustrated and really just wondering how to get through all of this. And on Thanksgiving Day, Dr. Hardison had to go to Aga Khan, which is about 25 to 30 kilometers away, and I was responsible for rounding on all the patients. And that morning, I began to just see past all of the obstacles of not having what I need, and just realizing that I do have what I have, and to be grateful and to be thankful and to see beyond my own experiences and to say, thank God. And it was truly a wonderful Thanksgiving for me, rounding all day in the hospital. And what few things we did have, I could do a lot more good by just being a good human being. Because if I wasn't there, it would be even less for these people. So if I was going to be there, I should be present, and I should be able to give of myself, and it's just not about me. And that was really, truly a wonderful experience. Because, you know, there are so many obstacles. People who live in dirt floors get fleas, a condition called jiggers. I have some photos that are really quite disgusting. And so that may not be this may not be the right venue for that. But just to understand that the conditions that people burning wood to cook, I mean, if the thought of having to chop your own wood, put it in some sort of shack outside, and all this smoke coming out just so you could boil water, and boiling water to drink, which most people don't do, boiling water to make beans, which most people don't have, or, you know, it's just, it was just it was quite an experience for me to understand how people live and understand how that impacts their health and how that impacts their spirituality. Because these people are very close to God, because when you don't have the interruptions of constant technology, constant stimuli, you really have a lot of time to contemplate your own life and to either face the reality of where you live and to find something greater than yourself to give you strength and hope and support. People from the outside can do that, and we did that as best as we could. But really, it makes you stop and think about your relationship with God, and that's a beautiful gift that I got while I was there. So spiritually, the trip was quite amazing to me, and I am very grateful in many ways for many things. To tell you a couple of stories, this photo is so difficult for me because this child this is Alvin, and he is a 9-day-old child who came in with a 1-day history of difficulty feeding. And to say that the limited training, it just doesn't do it. If this child had been in the US, things could have turned out differently, but I worked very hard to try to save this child. I started him on antibiotics and placed a small nasogastric tube to try to feed him because he wasn't feeding at all. And he was doing